Who is universally loved, but actually an asshole? Old reference, but Gary Bikoff aka Radar from MAS*H. Apparently he was notoriously hard to work with and generally an asshole to the movie and show cast and crew, but his character was so beloved that viewers never thought he was like that. On the flip side, poor Larry Linville, Major Frank Burns, was known to be an extremely nice guy, but got sneered at and generally treated like crap by the public due to his character in the show. Just goes to show you should separate the art from the artist. Not sure if they are universally loved, but I used to work in restaurants for the House of Mouse, and both Howie Mondell and Bobby McFerrin were total jerks. Acted like they were completely above everyone else, and both of them let their bratty kids run screaming around the restaurant, always smart when people carrying hot trays of food are everywhere. I had a lot of positive celebrity interactions, but those two were awful. Can't stand to listen to Don't Worry, Be Happy since. Rachel Ray. Loved her show until I went to see her live. In between takes she was a very not nice person. It's become public knowledge now, but Ellen DeGeneres. I met her, briefly, while working events at Universal Studios FL. Back in the mid-2000s she would on occasion film her talk show on location at Universal. My job would call for me to interact with Ellen and her crew for prepping and crowd control measures. There were 2 occasions that raised an eyebrow. First was behind set. The show was getting ready to start and I went back to tell her crew that we were ready for her to make her way to the stage where her show was being recorded. When I walked back there I saw Ellen yelling at a crew member, inches from his face. She was belittling him and threatened to leave him in FL. Second occasion was brief but impactful. One of my co-workers was standing somewhat close to her, back to back with her. Ellen turned around, looked at her with a look of disbelief and after a couple seconds said, "Aren't you just an invader of space?" She scoffed and walked away. We were both looking at each other thinking WTF is her problem. So for all those years I always thought of her as a phony while all of America loved her. I was not surprised when all those stories of her being awful to work with came to light. I already had experienced it. John Stamos helped his friend rape someone and was still bragging about it decades later. I don't think he's famous enough to be universally loved, but Mitch Albom, aka the author of Tuesdays with Morrie, hosted him at an author event for a small venue and he was fucking furious that the event was so beneath him, was furious we didn't have a plate of fresh fruit for him, he didn't have a writer or anything demanding we have fruit at the ready, just expected us to know, was furious that more people didn't show up to fawn over him, was just generally furious. Instead of talking about his book during the lecture, he spent 20 minutes taking a steaming dump over the staff, venue, and audience. Ironic given the subject of his books. Edit. The only person we shit-talked more was J.A. Jans, who writes a handful of detective series and one inexplicable collection of poems. She loved doing events at our place and was there every 6 months to promote her newest book. She had a huge and devoted following which baffled me because her events are insane. She once spent an entire hour singing for the audience, not well. When we tried to tell her we were now closing, she sort of waved grandly to her adoring fans and said, "Not until these people have heard me talk about my books," and then kept us open an additional hour while she mostly didn't talk about her book. She also always demanded we had copies of her poetry book on hand despite the fact that no one wanted it and we could rarely even get copies from the publisher. Once we even wound up buying some from a discount bin at Costco just so we could technically have some on hand. Edit 2, it may have been a Walmart discount bin. It's been a minute. From personal experience, Bill Nye was an absolute asshole from my interaction with him. It was perhaps the saddest moment of Don't Meet Your Heroes in my life. Martha Stewart. I witnessed her call her assistant and I quote, "a worthless piece of shit." No one should be called that for accidentally dropping her handbag. Edit. I also offered Martha a bottle of Fiji water and she said she only drinks Voss. Bill Nye, everyone I've ever talked with who met him has terrible stories. He's just a grumpy and mean asshole. Steve Jobs. It's pretty well known that he was a giant asshole, but he's still pretty romanticized in the tech sphere. From what my Fian told me is that Beyond is extremely entitled and rude to people. He worked in a restaurant where many celebrities would go to and he loved most of them but absolutely hated Beyond and Jay-Z. Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm not talking about taking advantage of people in vulnerable states and exploiting fear and trying to get famous by proving the paranormal, but Ed kept a young girl in their house. IRC, they told neighbors she was a fallen woman they were helping out by giving her a job as a live-in maid or nanny. She wasn't. She was a child and he was a predator and Lorraine did nothing about it, and yes, they had a kid in the house. Really sickened me to find out cause I like the Conjuring series as horror films and just enjoyed them for being cookie ghost hunters. Boy was I wrong. Celebs I've had great interactions with / saw them being awesome: Jack Black, Trevor Noah, Weird Al, America Ferrera, Neil Gaiman, Tawheed Epps, 2 Chainz, Jenna Murray, Jenna Marbles, Michael Render, Killer Mike. Celebs I've had terrible interactions with / saw them being awful: Donald Trump, pre-2016. He was a total jackass. He treated his wife like dirt and he talked to a black co-worker of mine like he was his personal slave. Chris Pratt mocked a woman he was with for being clumsy for a really long time and made everybody uncomfortable. Also didn't tip his waiter. Michael Jordan asked management to get that ugly guy out of my sight. I don't want to look at his stupid fucking face. James Corden, huge jackass and an unbearable drunk. Ruined more than a few people's evenings by just being an annoying prick. Joel Osteen was super smiley but extremely unfriendly and had the most unsettling vibe I've ever encountered. Amy Schumer, very difficult guest who made a lot of demands, didn't say please or thank you, snapped her fingers at people to get their attention and was very loud. I worked at a certain hotel / casino / restaurant chain place that a lot of stars have stayed at. The first few you meet really blow you away and then after a while you're like Andy Samberg is just picking his nose like nobody is watching. Hey. The only celebrities I actually met were America Ferrera and Joel Osteen. The rest of the people I mentioned I just saw my co-workers dealing with. Second-hand accounts that were fun to listen to: Jordan Peele is a great tipper and generally just seems cool AF. Mike Trout is kind of a dumbass but not in a bad way. Emma Watson gets very sweaty very quickly but sticks it out like a fucking champ. Jason Bateman tries a little too hard to be funny when he's around other celebs. Shaquille O'Neal is pretty nice and a little weird but that's okay. He also made bubbles in a drink he was given by blowing into the straw. Absolutely nobody liked meeting Kevin Sorbo and the other celebs avoided him like the plague. Naomi Osaka is absolutely the most wonderful person ever and deserves an award for being so nice all the time no matter what. Lil Wayne is funny as hell and talks about football a lot. Kevin Feige is socially awkward. Mark Ruffalo is kind of a corny douchebag. And John Green acts like he thinks he's really nice but he's actually kind of an oblivious jerk. Handed his plate to a Latina woman at the function he was at but she wasn't working, just another attendee. Steve Harvey. For those who want to know, watch his interviews on women and atheists. He's cheated on his wives, physically abusive, acts like religion is the only thing that between him and killing and raping people. Tim Allen lived near me for a while. Always a pompous ass. However, the gentleman who plays Gus Fring on Breaking Bad is a real good guy. Remembered my name and says hi to me when we run into each other at Whole Foods. He also tipped the cashier at WF $100 just because. What is not a religion, but people treat it with the same attention. Brands in general. People praising Adidas, Apple, Hugo Boss, etc. Mommy groups. Started getting completely out of hand when my kids were teenagers. I'm a crunchy mom, I'm this kind of mom, or that kind of mom. Those people get rabid. How dare you listen to advice given to you from a doctor about your individual child? My group thinks this. Heresy. Blasphemy. We will crucify you. They used to helpful, now they are fucking cults. Influencers. In India, cricket. Disney. Especially when you go down to Florida. Celebrity worship. Some MLM schemes. Obsession with a famous person, s. Homeopathy. Fish. K-pop. College football. 420 culture, I say this as someone who smokes weed. Workaholism / hustle culture. Certain sports. Women of Reddit, what are men not ready to hear? You all really do need to clip your nails. Anger is an emotion. If you're angry a lot or easily upset and people have to walk on eggshells around you, guess what? You're an emotional person. You have to wash in your crack, not just the cheeks. Please tell us if something is wrong. Do not cheat. It hurts and just keeps hurting forever. If you know it's over or you're not invested in the relationship anymore, please talk it out. Leave and do as you please. Don't break someone's heart in the process. Being cheated on feels like the death of your soul, mentally and physically affects your health. Obviously, vice versa. Women could learn too, but this is something that I, personally, would tell a man. If your bathroom is too gross to poop in, it's not gonna work out. That's my purse. I don't know you. Men are allowed to moan during sex. It's a huge turn on and encouraging for us. Fellas, if she slightly adjusts the angle of her pelvis while you're eating her out / touching her, don't move with her. She's lining up your shot for you. Weirdly, as a woman, I didn't think of this until I heard someone else say it. If you find something she enjoys, sexually, but I guess otherwise as well, lol, keep doing it. Don't interrupt the momentum by trying to switch it up for no reason. If you feel the need to tell me what a nice guy you are or how good you are at sex, especially oral sex, I will drive my car off a bridge to get away from you. That having a big dick does not mean that you're gonna be better at sex. It is also your responsibility to avoid causing unintended pregnancies. It's not all on us. You don't get to refuse a condom and then look at us and say don't get pregnant. Women never want strange men grabbing their ass in a bar. Ever. Repeat after me, ever. Sometimes what you perceive as admiration and / or respect is actually fear. You're bigger than us, and we always have that at the back of our minds, even if we don't personally have a reason to fear you. This isn't true of all women, but I suspect it's true of a lot of us. Contrast in responses to the male thread.